Hey guys, I'm going to begin our next story. It is another Hardy Boys book, The Secret of the Old Meal, and it's written by Frank W. Dixon. I'm cat sitting, and this keeps following me around, so I don't know if he's going to stay for story time or not. Chapter 1. A Narrow Escape. Wonder what mystery Dad's working on now, Joe Hardy asked. His brother Frank looked eagerly down the platform of the Bayport Railroad station. It must be a very important case, the way Dad dashed off to Detroit. We'll know in a few minutes. Joe looked at his watch impatiently. Train's late. Both boys were wondering, too, about a certain surprise their father had hinted might be ready for them upon his return. Waiting with Frank and Joe for Mr. Hardy's arrival was their best friend, Chet Morton. Your dad's cases are always exciting and dangerous. The plump, ruddy-faced boy remarked, Do you think he'll give you a chance to help out on this one? We sure hope so, Joe replied eagerly. Well, if I know you fellas, Chet went on, you'll get mixed up in the mystery somehow. And so will I, sooner or later. There goes my peaceful summer vacation. Frank and Joe chuckled, knowing that Chet, despite his penchant for taking things easy and avoiding unnecessary risk, would stick by them through any peril. Dark-haired 18-year-old Frank and blond, impetuous Joe, a year younger, had often assisted their detective father, Fenton Hardy, in solving baffling mysteries. There was nothing the two brothers liked more than tackling a tough case, either with their father or by themselves. Chet gave a huge sigh and leaned against a baggage truck as though his weight were too much for him. I sure could use something to eat, he declared. I should have brought along some candy or peanuts. The Hardys exchanged winks. They frequently needled their friend about his appetite, and Joe could not resist doing so now. What's the matter, Chet? Didn't you have lunch? Or did you forget to eat? The thought of this remote possibility brought a hearty laughter from Frank. Chet threw both boys a glance of mock indignation, then grinned. Okay, I'm going inside and get some candy from the machine. As Chet went into the station, the Hardys looked across to the opposite platform where a northbound train roared in. The powerful diesel ground to a halt, sparks flashing from under the wheels. Passengers began to alight. Did you notice that there weren't any passengers waiting to board the train? Frank remarked. At that moment, a man dashed up the stairs onto the platform towards the rear of the train. As the train started to move, the stranger made a leap for the last car. Guess he made it. That fellow's lucky, Joe commented as the train sped away. And crazy. You're telling me, Chet exclaimed as he rejoined the brothers, munching on a chocolate bar. He added, That same man stopped me in the station and asked me to change a $20 bill. There was a long line at the ticket counter, so he didn't want to wait there for change. He grabbed the money I gave him and rushed out the door as if the police were after him. Boy, Joe exclaimed, you must really be loaded with money if you could change a $20 bill. Chet blushed and tried to look as modest as he could. Matter of fact, I do have a good bit with me, he said proudly. I guess the man saw it when I pulled out my wallet to be sure the money was there. What are you going to do with all your cash? Frank asked curiously. Start a mint of your own money? Now, don't be funny, Frank Hardy, Chet retorted. You must have noticed that for a long time I haven't been spending much. I've been saving like mad to buy a special scientific instrument. After your dad arrives, I'm going to pick it up. What kind of hobby are you launching into this time, Chet? Frank asked, grinning. From past experience, Frank and Joe knew that their friend's interest in new hobbies would only last another hobby until another hobby captured his fancy. This is different, Chet insisted. I'm going to the scientific specialty store and buy a twin-lensed, high-powered microscope and an illuminator to go with it. A microscope, Joe exclaimed. What are you going to do with it? Hunt for the answers to the school exams? Frank joined Joe in a loud laugh, but Chet did not seem to think there was anything funny about it. Just you two wait, he muttered, kicking a stone that was lying on the platform. You don't know whether or not I'll decide to be a naturalist or even a zoologist. Wow, said Joe. I can see a sign. Chester Morton, big game naturalist. Okay, Chet said. Maybe even you two great detectives will need me to help you with some of your cases. The conversation ended with Frank saying, Here comes Dad's train. The express from Detroit rolled into the station. The brothers and their friends scanned the passengers alighting. To their disappointment, Mr. Hearty was not among them. Are there any other Bayport passengers? Frank asked the conductor. No, sir, the trainman called out as he waved the go-ahead signal to the engineer and jumped back onto the car. As the train pulled out, Joe said, Dad must have been delayed at the last moment. Let's come back to the station and meet the 4 o'clock train. That's plenty of time for you fellows to go with me and pick up my microscope, said Chet. The boys walked to Chet's jalopy, nicknamed Queen, parked in the station lot. The Queen had been painted a brilliant yellow and souped up by Chet during one of the periods when engines were his hobby. It was a familiar and amusing sight around the streets of Bayport. She's not fancy, but she gets around pretty quick, Chet often maintained stoutly. I wouldn't trade her for all the fancy cars in the showrooms. The gas gauge reads empty, Joe observed, as Chet backed the jalopy from the curb. How do you figure you will make it downtown? Chet was unconcerned. Oh, that tank's really half full. I'll have to fix that gauge. The Hardys exchanged amused glances, knowing that Chet would soon be so absorbed in his microscope that he would forget to tinker with the car. Suddenly, Chet swung the Queen around in the parking lot. The rough gravel caught in the tire treads and rattled against the rear fenders. Hey, what's the big rush? Joe demanded. We have 3 whole hours to get back there. Who's in a hurry? Said Chet, adding proudly. I'm not driving fast. I just wanted to find out if I changed the turning circle of the Queen by adjusting the tie rods. Some adjustment, Joe grimaced. Think we'll get to town in one piece? Huh, Chet snorted. You don't appreciate great mechanical genius when you see it. In the business center of Bayport, the boys found traffic heavy. Fortunately, Chet found a parking spot across the street from the scientific specialty store and swung the car neatly into the space. See what I mean? He asked good old Queen. And boy, I can't wait to start working with that microscope, Chet exclaimed as the three boys got out and walked to the corner. All bugs beware, Joe grinned. You ought to be a whiz in science class next year, Frank said while they waited for the light to change. When it flashed green, the trio started across the street. Simultaneously, a young boy on a bicycle began to ride towards them from the opposite side of the street. The next moment, a large sedan, its horn honking loudly, sped through the intersection against the red light and roared directly towards the Hardys and Chet. Instantly, Frank gave Joe and Chet a tremendous push, and they all leapt back to safety. To their horror, the sedan swerved, and the young boy on the bicycle was directly in its path. Look out, the Hardys yelled at him. And that's the end of chapter 1. Thank you for joining me.